Today, the UFC has released a couple of fights on the way to you in the next few months. Also, what about Brandon Moreno, who was victorious in Mexico City? And what about Josh Emmett versus Lerone Murphy on a card that we really only want to see the and the main event? Because times are hard. That's right. For a $4.5 billion company, times are hard. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy, Matt, and we are here to go over a couple of things going on in the MMA world, in the MMA sphere. You know what I'm saying? We got new fights that was announced. We got fights that went on in Mexico City. We got fights coming up this weekend at the Apex that there's not a lot to care about except for maybe a couple, and we're going to dive into it all head first. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm just playing. Anyway, so let's start out with Mexico City. The UFC Mexico went down last Saturday, in which in the main event, Brandon Moreno goes out there and defeats Astro Boy Steve Erceg. Look, this was a pretty back and forth fight. I'd say that Moreno convincingly won it, but this was definitely a back and forth fight. And had Steve been able to add a little pep in his step, you know what I'm saying? Put a little pepper on those shots, if you will, he might have been able to do something to Moreno. You know, his striking looked sharp, it looked crisp, and it looked on point. But he just didn't have the power to back Moreno up or make Moreno respect what he was doing. So, Brandon goes out there, he does Brandon things, and he gets the win. Now, at this point, I'm not sure. I mean, it's clear cut, you know, he should definitely get a flyweight title shot, in my opinion. But, you know, you have Brandon Royval is still out there. You've got Pantoja, who I'm not sure who he's going to fight next. They might already have a fight in the works for that. I'm not really sure. But at the same time, I definitely wouldn't mind seeing Brandon Moreno and Pantoja one more time for the flyweight championship. However, part of me kind of believes that they'll make Brandon Moreno have one more fight before he's able to secure another flyweight title shot. So we will see how that goes down, but Brandon Moreno is victorious in the main event of UFC Mexico. Now in the co-main event, we had the man with the Bruce Wayne square jawline. Drew Dober goes out there and gets KO'd by Manuel Torres. This wasn't shocking to me at all. This is definitely what I saw happening. I didn't really understand why hardly anyone would be picking Drew Dober in this instance. Granted, I know Drew Dober has had some high moments in his career, but at this point, you know, the homie is divorced from his chin, and what a strong, square chin it is. But he's divorced from it, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't really see this going any other way than the way that it went. And he was knocked out. His chin was laying on the floor. And that's what it was, bro. So, Manuel Torres moves on. Interesting co-main event. Overall, the UFC Mexico card was pretty good. There were some pretty decent finishes. Didn't have a ton of names on it. You know, shout out to Edgar Chairez, who had an amazing win. And then a truly emotional post-fight speech when he was talking about, you know, his grandfather selling his truck and putting up the money for him to have an operation that he needed or surgery that he needed, only to now go out there, have his biggest win in front of, you know, his Mexican fans and no longer have his grandfather on this earth anymore. Heartfelt, tearjerker, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Edgar Chairez. At least he was able to go out there, put on an amazing show for the Mexican fans, and that was awesome to see. So now let's shift gears from there. Let's move over to this week's card, where in the main event, Josh Emmett will step in the octagon with Lerone Murphy. This is the latest offering from the Apex, and I'm going to be real with you. I'm going to watch this card, of course, because I watch all the cards. But there's not a lot I'm excited for on this card. So, literally, I'm only going to tell y'all about 2 fights on this card that I'm interested in seeing, and both of them are the main and the co-main event. Let's start out with the main event. We got Josh Emmett stepping in the octagon with Lerone Murphy. For this one, man, I'm going to go along with Lerone Murphy, straight up. And the thing about Josh Emmett is a tricky fighter because he possesses that one-punch knockout power. You know what I'm saying? The dude's got like a hydraulic press in his shoulder, and it sends his arm shooting out, and boom. And people fall dead to the earth. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, the problem with a fighter like that is I feel like Josh Emmett is far out of his prime, far past his prime. And if he didn't possess that power, he might not even still be, moving forward in the UFC. Because what happens with a fighter like that is their prime goes, but power is the last thing to go. And so you can lock him in the octagon with a lot of fighters, and he's going to get washed. But every now and then he's going to uncork one of those, Thanos glove punches, and it's going to send somebody barreling down to the earth and probably send them down to Hades. That's the type of power that he packs. And so then, the casual fans go crazy over this amazing knockout, and they think Josh Emmett is back, or they think Josh Emmett still got more in the tank. Now, who's to say that he doesn't? But what I am saying is I got to go along with Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy also packs dynamite in his hands. Lerone Murphy has showed that he can go in there with a wrestler, he can go in there with an all-stand-up fighter, and he can still emerge victorious. He's on a nice little win streak right now. We're not here to compare the strength of schedules because, of course, who hasn't Josh Emmett fought? You know what I'm saying? Josh Emmett's strength of schedule has been strong. You know what I'm saying? So this dude has fought all types of powerful people, all types of wrestlers, all types of tremendous stand-up fighters. He's beaten a lot of guys we didn't think he would beat, and he's taken a lot of L's as well. But with that being said, man, I got to go along with Lerone Murphy because part of me believes that if Josh Emmett didn't pack that dynamite in his hands, I'm not sure if he would still be main eventing UFC cards. I ain't saying he wouldn't be fighting still, but I don't know if he'd still be main eventing. So for this, I got to go along with Lerone Murphy, more upside on him. Now, the only other fight that I'm even kind of intrigued about seeing on this card is the co-main event, which is Paul Felder's partner in crime, Pat Sabatini, going in there with Joe Anderson Brito. This, I think, is also going to be a tricky fight because when you take a look at it, Brito was on a nice win streak until his last fight where he went in there with William Gomi. You know what I'm saying? The Frenchman. And he took a L in that fight. Now, that did go to a split decision. So, I felt like Gomi deserved to get that win. I don't think it was a robbery or anything like that, but it was definitely close. And, Brito had his moments. You know what I'm saying? This dude, Brito, is a savage in the octagon. You know what I'm saying? He's a stone cold savage, as much as that term gets thrown around loosely. But this dude, not only can he grapple and wrestle, but his striking, he moves forward with reckless abandonment. He doesn't care if he gets caught. And he's just moving forward. You know what I'm saying? He's moving forward and he's going to take your head off. That's just how this man fights. And if this goes to the ground, he's going to grapple with you at a pace and a fury that if you're able to out-grapple him or out-scramble him, before you know, when you're back to your feet, he's approaching you once again, swinging those ham-hock fists, trying to knock you back down to the octagon floor. You know what I'm saying? This dude is no joke. But what makes this fight tricky is Pat Sabatini comes from a good team. they game planned well. And after a loss that Pat Sabatini took, you know what I'm saying? Just taking a look at this, Pat Sabatini went out there. He got his last win against Pierce. But before that, he ran into a buzzsaw named Diego Lopez. And there ain't a lot of men walking that's going to defeat Diego Lopez. So you got to give him the loss there. It's just what it is. With that being said, he had a big win before that against Almeida, but he took a horrible L to, I can't remember the homie's first name. His last name is Jackson. The homie that went and got his hairline redone overseas in Turkey or somewhere. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Bro, at the end of the day, I'm not sure if Pat Sabatini won't go out there with a good game plan and a good gas tank to keep dragging Brito down to the ground. I'm sure the first few takedown attempts Brito will be able to stuff quite easily. But after that, I think Pat Sabatini will begin to get him down to the ground. And in a way, I believe, not, of course not with power, because I'd say between these two guys, definitely Brito is the more powerful fighter. But I think Pat might be able to control him with technique on the ground. But the problem is that at any time that Brito returns back to his feet, I think he's going to throw them hands and he's going to put Pat on Front Street. You know what I'm saying? He's going to serve Pat Sabatini a pink slip. He's going to give him his walking papers and probably get him up out of there. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely a world. But there's definitely a portion of this fight that could happen. Again, this one is hard to call. I know it seems like you just think Joe Anderson's going to go in there and wax Pat Sabatini. But I'm not so fast. Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? I don't really know if that's actually going to happen. You know what I'm saying? This one is a hard one to call, man. Because you could sit there and go for Joe Anderson Brito and think he's going to do Brito things and knock him out or, hurt him badly and get him up out of there. But then you might be watching that fight and it's the end of the second round and Sabatini done held him down. You know what I'm saying? With all of that being said, I don't think that Pat packs enough power in his punches and has enough technique on the feet to keep Brito at bay. So even though he would win in the wrestling exchange, I'm sure it won't be easy to get him to the ground. He's going to get stuffed quite a few times, but I think he will be able to take Brito down. But I think anytime this is on the feet, Pat is in danger. So I got to go along with Joe Anderson Brito to go out there and get the win. Outside of that, man, I'm not really too much worried about what else is on this card. There's a couple of names, but no big names, no stars, nothing major like that. I will definitely be checking it out. I will be hoping to see a few good scraps, and I think we will. But overall, this is another one of them cards. You know what I'm saying? It's another one of them. Look, man. We under contract with the ESPN, with ESPN Plus. We got to deliver these cards, and there was nobody available. So this is what y'all gonna get. You know what I'm saying? It's one of them. It's one of them. I'd be surprised if Dana White is even in the building. You know what I'm saying? Dana White's probably gonna go on vacation this weekend. I'd be shocked. Dana White going on his own spring break. You know what I'm saying? I'd be shocked if he's there. Nevertheless, that's what it is. I got Lerone Murphy. And in the co-main event, I got Brito. Now, let's move on. Let's talk about some fights. Some fights that were announced yesterday by Uncle Dana, Daddy Warbucks, Big Money, Deep Pockets, Dana White himself. Let's start out with a fight that we're not really clamoring to see. Will we watch it? Yeah, but no one's really looking forward to this at all. The main event of UFC 316 sees a rematch for the Bantamweight Championship as Merab Dvalishvili steps in the octagon with Sugar Sean O'Malley. Yeah, they're giving him a rematch. Man, you want to talk about thirsty. You know what I'm saying? You want to talk about desperate, bro. The UFC is so desperate to get Sean O'Malley back into a title and to try to move some pay-per-view units with him as champion. It's amazing. Like, it's amazing. You know what I'm saying? The UFC is more desperate than a 4-year high school student entering into their prom thinking he gonna get a little. That's how thirsty and desperate they are. That's how desperate they are. I should say a dude that's been on a 4-year drought all through high school, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, it's been a drought. It's his senior prom. He thinks it's finally going to go through. He thinks it's finally going to happen, and he's going to make it happen by any means necessary. That's where the UFC is at. You know what I'm saying? That's where they at, trying to get Sean O'Malley back into the champion driver's seat. And it's kind of ridiculous. Nobody called for this fight. The first fight wasn't particularly close. I know people want to act like that Merab barely won 3 rounds to 2, but that is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Merab handled him in their first fight. And it was never really a point where you really felt like Merab was in danger. There was no need for this main event. I'm not here to tell you who Merab could have fought outside of Sean O'Malley. I'm just here to tell you he shouldn't have been fighting. He shouldn't be fighting Sean O'Malley in a rematch. But that's what the UFC signed. That's the main event of UFC 316, which looks like it goes down on June 7th. Let's move on. Another fight that was signed. Same card. UFC 316. The co-main event. Juliana Pena will make the attempt to defend her bantamweight, the women's bantamweight championship, against Kayla Harrison. Now, this is something I'm a little bit more interested in seeing, just because Juliana Pena should not have won her last championship fight to win the title for a second time. She should have never won that fight. Raquel Pennington should still be the bantamweight champion. With that being said, we all know Pena will try to go at someone on the mic. You know, we all know she's got a mouthpiece on her. So, you know, she will definitely try to sell pay-per-views, but she doesn't have a good strength of schedule as far as how frequent she enters into the octagon. You're doing good to get a Pena fight once every 2 to 3 years. You know what I'm saying? So we got to get her up out of there. You know what I'm saying? We got to get her up out of there. And for whatever you might say about Kayla Harrison, I do think that if she goes in and she defeats Pena and becomes the champion, bantamweight will be a little bit more funner for a little while. Or be fun, period. It's not fun at all right now. So I should say it will be fun for a little while. For as long as Kayla Harrison can continue to make 135 pounds. And I don't know how much longer that's going to be. Because, you know, shout out to her. She's bricked up. She's diesel. It wouldn't shock me if you told me she's walking around at 200 pounds. You know what I'm saying? That's a, you know, and that's no disrespect. That's a big woman. You know what I'm talking about? So with that being said, if she wins the championship, I feel she can make that division fun for as long as she continue to make that weight, because she's just unique in the current climate of female fighters in the UFC. So the fight has been signed. I want to see Kayla Harrison go out there and get the win. That's why I'm kind of interested in seeing that fight. Let's move on. This fight is a savior fight. You know what I'm saying? This is shout out to Ian Gary. Shout out to Ian Gary, because Ian Gary steps in, you know, somewhat short notice. Again, he already stepped in short notice in a war with Shafkat. In a fight he didn't really have to take. He stepped in there short notice. He took that L, but still, I think he came out smelling a lot better than when he went in, because a lot of people thought that Ian Gary was a little bit soft. And when he stepped in on short notice and took a fight against Shafkat to save a card that he didn't have to take, a lot of people was like, okay, Ian Gary might be that dude. You know, he might, I don't know if he'll ever go on to be a champion. I don't know if he'll ever go on to be that dude skill-wise. And he didn't look too bad against Shafkat in moments. But when you talk about cojones, when you talk about balls. Ian Gary has that, and he's not scared, and you got to give him that. As he comes in to save a fight, and he's about to step in there with Carlos Prates. This fight, I think, in a welterweight main event of a UFC fight night, is going to bang. Both of these guys are really, really appointment viewing when it comes to stand-up fighting. And I could see Ian Gary trying to do a little bit of wrestling just to kind of throw off the timing of Carlos. But for the most part, I think we're going to get a main event, 5-round welterweight stand-up war. You know what I'm saying? I could see either man sleeping the other. You know what I'm saying? I could see this going to a decision, but just being a stand-up battle for 5 rounds straight. But, like I said, I could see either man finishing the other on the feet. Or, in the case of Ian Gary, I could see a good club and sub. I could see him dropping Carlos and then going to the ground with him, sneaking that arm, getting behind him, sneaking that arm under the chin and choking him out. I could definitely see that. This is definitely going to be an interesting fight because it's going to show you if, it's going to basically, when you talk about the Ian Gary side, it puts him back in a position to move forward and upward in the welterweight division and show he didn't need to take any steps back after a loss to Shafkat. It also we're going to get a true measurement of where Carlos fits in the welterweight pecking order. You know what I'm saying? In that middle to upper echelon in the welterweight division, is Carlos going to be a player or not? Outstanding fight. I'm excited to see it. And that's all I got for y'all, man. That's all I got. That's it. That's the end of the tweet. That's all I got for you. I'm going to be right back with you with another video. You know what I'm saying? Things are a little dry this week on the UFC front. Things are a little bit boring at the moment. Like I've been talking about for multiple videos, we're in a transition period where the stars are either retiring or they ain't fighting. And we waiting on these rookies or to become stars or to go out there and wow us. So things are a little down, a little boring right now. Your boy Matt's going to see what type of content he can come up with, and we going to go at it. But in the meantime, man, I appreciate y'all for continuing to check out these videos. Please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. Who you got between Josh Emmett and Lerone Murphy? Let me know. You know what I'm saying? Do you think Brandon Moreno is going to get the next flyweight championship title shot? Let me know. And who you got in Ian Gary versus Carlos Prates? Let me know. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.